all of a sudden you've been dreaming for someone to offer help and participation. And right now you've been dreaming of this 3 months ago, but right now understand you have to say no. Reading the messages, like looking at the photos or students send that, like, hey, for example, we had a girl, she got a scholarship. She right now finishing her degree. She's getting married. She found a job, and you're supposed to go to San Francisco because of the acceleration program. It's like, yeah, be my guest. So that feels amazing. First of all, loyalty. I think like for me, in terms of the people, in terms of the team, it's the most important, the most of value. So I think loyalty, respect, and kind of like commitment to what you're doing. You might not be as good in anything, but you're really willing to put as much as you can.
Welcome to Seedstars podcast. Seedstars is an organization that aims to have an impact in emerging markets by supporting the local entrepreneurs, investing in their ventures, but also sharing their story globally because we really believe they are the true heroes. We'll be listening to them and other thought leaders and disruptors that are really shaping the future of tomorrow. And we hope that together we can build a sustainable impact.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Seedstars podcast. I'm your host, Pete Craig, and after 30 years in business, many of those working with startups, I now work with founders and startups teams to help them accelerate their potential, accelerate their growth, and perhaps most importantly, accelerate their impact in their industry and in their countries. And that's one of the things that really drew me to Seedstars, and why it's such a pleasure to be working with Seedstars on this series of podcasts, is that I'm super impressed by the impact that Seedstars is having on emerging markets and the talent that they're developing, and how they're helping that talent kind of have a greater impact in the world. And today, I'm super excited to introduce to you someone who really is turning into an amazing leader and is transforming the business that she's created. At such a young age, she's already racked up a number of accolades. She's been awarded the McKinsey Next Generation Women Leaders Award. That was back in 2017. She was also the winner of the prestigious Russian President's Scholarship Education for education abroad. And she's worked for Barclays Bank as a global market analyst. And most recently, before she started her own company, she was the Chief Business Development Officer for Zena Exchange. Zena Exchange is a cryptocurrency exchange that was developed by the world's leading financial institutions. And as if that wasn't enough, she's now gone on to create her own business that's based around her passion, which is making international education available for everyone. So please join me in welcoming to today's episode the CEO and founder of StudyFree, Dasha Kroshkina. Dasha, welcome.
Hi, Pete. Thank you.
So Dasha, tell us a little bit about you first of all. Let's start with that. You know, your background is quite interesting, quite diverse, and to have gone from an analyst in banking to business development officer for what is I'd imagine a company that's got a huge growth trajectory, to doing something for yourself. Yeah, I'm interested to understand. What drove you to that?
It's actually my personal story, because what we do right now, we help students from any country to get equal access to international education and mobility. And I was one of the students, back maybe 10 years ago. I was one of them, living in a small township back in Russia, small family, no financing, dreaming to see the world, but no opportunities. And then just managed to win so many scholarship and grants and studied for free. Russia, Spain, China, then top business school second time, worked Berkeley, studied in States and Stanford, also with scholarship. And along the way, I was developing my corporate career. And I guess the top line was actually getting a job in Berkeley. And I thought oh my God, this is kind of the top place, investment bank. And that's the place where magic happens. And guess what? There is no magic. I mean, it's amazing. I love trading and sales. It's so dynamic. It's challenging, it's diverse, changing every time. Pretty much the same with startup. But you don't have a soul in this. You don't feel an impact. And at the same time, parallel, I started to kind of coach and mentoring students like my own on education abroad. And step by step, I just helped 30 of them all got scholarships. And just some point of time, I just realized there is time to get risk. There is time to try something really exciting. you sometimes have this idea, at least like back in Russia, that you have to spend some years in a top brand name company, like 10 years to get experience and then start a company. And after talking to these people who've been working in all these companies, you just realize there's just nothing they actually get from there. I mean, you can lose passion, you can lose energy, you can dedicate to something that is not yours. And there is not very time in to take sake, like create something your own. And was actually the trigger in my case. I got the final scholarship so far in Stanford, and I went to Silicon Valley and just got so inspired by all this acceleration, startups, and the whole vibe. And I just got back to Shanghai where I was living and just packed all my life into suitcases and moved back to Russia to launch my own company. So yeah, like first I got an offer for the fintech company, and it was a great transition from the corporate world to actually seeing startup from inside, doing fundraising with them and making first steps in my company. And as I started to kick off in the 6 months, I just went full time, which was like 1.5 years ago. So yeah,
So
and I think that's like the most exciting part.
So you kind of like launched your company while you were still working for Zena, yeah?
Yeah. So I think it's kind of like sometimes it really makes you much more comfortable taking first steps when you don't really know what is going to happen, but still kind of like getting a paid job and doing this like a smooth transition. And when I realized that's time to risk, that's time to kind of like I can make much more for the company being full-time employed.
Yeah, for sure. So what's just tell us a little bit about what StudyFree is and what it does.
So StudyFree is an online platform that helps talented people from any country to get any kinds of international education with scholarship and grants. So we basically help people to get successfully admitted to any universities in any country and ultimately get scholarship and grants to cover their cost of tuition living expenses. We do have an automatic product and platform that pretty much we took traditional college admission consultancy and automated the whole process. And because of this, we managed to make it much more affordable and democratic in terms of the price. That's helping wider range of population, not just like high income families to get these services, to go to the schools. And we ultimately target emerging markets. Like that's what Seedstars is about. And that's kind of like what we believe in. Those who can get access, the Latin America, the Russian speaking countries, Asia, Africa, all of this.
And is that a kind of like a widespread challenge? You talked a little bit at the beginning about how you were from a small town, with limited resources, and this was the way for you to get access to this much wider education. Is that a common problem in the kind of like sectors that you work in, and is it a common problem that's shared by people that use your platform?
Yeah, it's actually a really common problem because there is a huge gap between people who really would like to make it globally, not just like in their countries, and their like opportunity, their resources. So there's like a lot of people who don't know you can get a top international education for free, not spending money. And majority of people just think you need to have rich parents, you have to be genius to kind of like move to a different country to make your living, to make your dream in any country possible. So what we ultimately do, we kind of like give them a key to the door. It's like global opportunities. So yeah. It's kind of like it's really common in every country, even like in most developed ones, like in the States, you're always gonna have someone who really capable, but just doesn't know that there are kind of like opportunities you can help it.
So is there also then a challenge in communicating what it is that you do to your audience? Yeah, because if they're not aware of it, they're perhaps not looking for it. So how do you bridge that gap? How do you make people aware that this is now available to them?
That's all about the marketing, and I can talk endlessly about this because that's what I kind of like do all the time. So what we do, we host online webinars which free online, where we share that it's actually possible to study abroad with scholarship and grants, and that's how you can do this. And we managed to make it automated way every day on different audiences, different countries, and multiple languages. So kind of like we first tell them, hey guys, there are opportunities. Hey, there is a case, and that's how you're gonna get it, how you're gonna win it together with us. So it's kind of like two-step approach here.
Yeah. And what was that? How did you come to that? Kind of like that model of marketing, that model of communicating. Was it something you'd had experience of in one of your previous roles, or was this something that you kind of like had to find out for yourself?
I started in different industries. That's not something I faced actually myself during the previous companies. It's just like it's kind of like informational business, what like usually done with like coaching So I saw like some of them for the marketing purposes actually, and just realized, hey, so I did know nothing. I saw an advertising on Instagram. I signed up, and now I'm kind of like on at the beginning of the funnel. So that you can apply to any product which is kind of like complicated and you're not aware yet. So we started to try to think and to apply to our case. And I think all this indication in so many different countries, in my case, made my kind of like mind and approach so flexible and adaptive that I'm easily what I found as the biggest advantage in my case. I found so many cases in different industries, different projects, and again I see the application kind of like turn upside down to apply to our case.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. Yeah. I mean, I was interested in that because I've run for a long time. A lot of the businesses that I've been involved in have been kind of like online information based companies. So we've used webinars as a form
really?
as a form of communication, as a form of selling, for and for a form of delivery, actually delivering content and delivering training for a long time. Yeah, so it's I was interested in how you've managed to pick on that one particular thing, because if you were to ask me, that's the way I would have said to do it.
Yeah, actually, no, like not so many people know about this. Like usually,
No.
I'm sure like the finals, like wow, it's actually working, it's actually possible.
Yeah.
It gives you the key actually to convert my higher rates customers, and it's kind of like viewing the app, warming them up. It's very effective.
Yeah, yeah. And do you use do you use kind of like a CRM system as well? So you've got a system of communicating with them, beyond once they've attended the webinar, you're tracking all of that information, are you?
Yeah, sure. We have a CRM system, we have analytics system, and then we have even automated channels. First, we started to communicate with them through emails. Then, since we talked to the students who were not really used to get information, consume information through the emails until you actually start work. So we kind of moved to the messenger marketing, and we're using automatic bots kind of like shifting it. So it's really effective. And then like after that ends the webinar, we have a special triggers, we have chains of messages. Following the app, warming, then we have retarget, then back, all of this.
Cool. So it's a proper, what you're creating is actually a proper almost direct response business in so much as the way you market and the way you convert and the way you track and the way you onboard people, I presume, is very similar as well. So using these automated systems.
Yeah.
So you're leveraging all sorts of technology here to make this work.
Yeah, I'm trying reaching the clients, making it like inside the team, because I think like it's really important to make the process the most optimal, the most rational from the very beginning, because like as you grow to kind of change how it works to make it much more automated, it's complicated. Because the bigger you get it, the much more complex the system is.
Absolutely. It's one of the approaches that I always take in business is to think about where you want to be in 5-10 years time, and to build that now. Because as you say, it's very, very difficult to kind of backtrack and start improving things once you get at scale. Yeah,
that's very true. That's kind of like what I'm thinking, making everyone.
Yeah. So how many countries do you serve, or so how many countries are you serving right now?
So we have active registered users who like applying themselves through our platform from 108 countries. Very actively paying around 32 countries right now. So it's mostly emerging markets. I see huge potential in African countries. I really do believe. Not so many people support me, but that's okay. That's not obvious so far. Of course, Asia and Latin America. Yeah.
And do you have people that lead in those regions for you, or is everything run from you? It's all you. Yeah.
We have kind of like small team. Have 17 people right now, but just 5 people full time. The rest is part time. We hire a lot of students who not that experienced so far, so we don't have that much experienced professional help. And whenever it comes to international business development and growth, it's on me. I'm kind of like the Seedstars has theme is like chief growth officer. Kind of in the growth model. So I'm in charge of this.
That's you as well as everything else.
CEO, chief everything officer.
Yeah. So how do you find that? How do you cope with that? Because there's a big jump from working with heavily funded startup businesses to working with investment banks and those types of things where there's support, and there's a team around you, there's experience, and there's money, more importantly. How has this changed you? How do you cope with that?
It actually feels much more natural for me than actually being in a bank, because I think in my case, I'm really challenge seeker. I mean, I went to China 10 years ago when no one was speaking about China. Right now, it's obvious. I've been moving in different countries, learning languages from scratch, and just starting from zero. So I guess like being in all this constant changing environment, starting from scratch, it's really feels natural, feels comfortable. Kind of how to the extent it can be comfortable, it feels comfortable. And in terms of the business side, I have mindset of a salesperson, so I'm much more driven into making money, because we haven't fundraised before. Because in my case, when you have a choice of make money or search for money, you're gonna make money. So it was challenging, but it was still fascinating. Trying to find all these ways to make it as lean as possible, the leanest way possible, and kind of like getting this DNA, really business oriented, business focused DNA of fighting for every percentage in the conversion rate for every single dollar, because you're actually making them. You don't have money to rely on. I think that actually kind of really built strongly our culture, like the way we think, the way we go for the growth, the way we make money. And right now, because we have this mindset already, we're kind of like ready to scale up and get external funds. So it's unusual, but I think I'm much more in my place where I'm right now rather than investment bank.
Fantastic. I want to pull back on two points. So the first one is you mentioned there that you've traveled to these different countries and you speak lots of languages. Is it you that presents in all of these different languages, the webinars? Is it you that records those in different languages? Yeah, fantastic. And how many different languages?
I can speak 4: Russian, English, Spanish, Chinese.
Okay, fantastic. Wow. There was me thinking that you had these remote teams in each of these different regions, and they were all delivering the content for you. But it's all you. So
that's me. So far.
That's amazing. And the second thing I wanted to pull back on, we talked about this just before we started, was you mentioned that you've got this kind of growth mindset, this make money mindset for the business, and you actually started with $300. Did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, you started the business with $300. What does that look like now?
We have monthly revenue of $60,000 last month, 1 year and a half.
That's incredible. Amazing.
Pretty nice growth.
You should be very proud.
I think it's okay. It's a lot to be done. I mean, it's not that we're really in the top place. It was a good job, but it's gonna be a lot to be done. So it's not the time to kind of sit and rest. Definitely not.
What would you say has been the biggest challenge for you over the last 18 months?
Actually find it the most difficult question. Because in my case, I think like all the challenges, it's kind of like it's not challenges. It's the things you need to solve. So it's not really. I mean, back time, I don't really think it was a challenge. It was just like nice. But as I usually say, I think it was a personal challenge for me, maybe at some point of time, psychological, maybe emotional, and that's fine. Knowing how to say no to some people and some opportunities, because I think there's in some points you just don't realize when you make this transition, like you're at zero. You have idea, you have nothing, you don't have money, you don't have a team, you don't have a product. And then, for example, there are some like people, opportunities, accelerators, mentors. You kind of like, oh my God, I want to reach to them. I want them to be part of my team. And then as long as you grow, like these people start to pay attention to you and like opportunities rise. But you realize as long as you grow, that's already not what you need. Like, because you have an idea, you can really aim really high, you can really aim really top, and you have to say no. Like all of a sudden, you've been dreaming for someone to offer help and participation. And right now, you've been dreaming of this 3 months ago, but right now understand you have to say no, because you're going to give up something right now for something better that's going to come along like later in the future. And not being afraid to say no, kind of like feeling like, oh my God, you're going to be angry, like kind of like negative, or like, oh my God, I'm doing a mistake. I'm going to get something. I'm like sacrificing for what? That was just being comfortable and kind of like having this internal, I don't know how to say in English, kind of like real like will.
Belief.
Like, belief to actually say no. And this is the first thing. And second, also kind of like say no. You have tons of people. Because if you did something out of the box, not standard, especially impact related, especially emerging markets related, people can understand what you're doing actually real on the top. There are really few of them. And until you're gonna reach these people on the top, you're gonna go through, I don't know, dozens, hundreds of people who are gonna say, no, you didn't do wrong. You're not gonna do this. You're not gonna build this. You shouldn't look at these markets. You should sell to the United States. It's not possible. You cannot make impact. And you just keep saying, thank you in your head. I'm going to do this. I will do
Yeah.
this, and just keep growing and having this unbreakable belief and confidence in what you're making, and that it's going to be something big, and you should not sacrifice any given moment for something mediocre.
Yeah.
That's, I guess, it's a challenge for every founder. You always have to make the decision, and it's going to be your responsibility for like consequences potentially.
Absolutely, yeah. Great answer. What does the next 12 months look like? What's the kind of like the plan to scale?
It's just grind to the moon. Sometimes we joke with our team, like with the pace that we're growing, we like in 2 years we're going to be sending people to study in the schools in the Mars, so like different universe, doing this tourism with Elon Musk on board. But within the next 12 months, I really want to grow international as much as possible. I want to have hundreds of thousands of students applying for a platform. I want to hit targets because for now we have $4 million of US of scholarship grants. I want to hit at least like 100 million of scholarships given. So it's really growing scalably, growing within the team, but helping people growing in terms of the results and in terms of our presence in different markets. And what I also kind of like my personal goal, we have a very unique corporate culture inside. Everyone is so engaged. Everyone is so like empathy to students. Like whatever we do, like everyone's like, "Oh my God, your team is amazing. They're so much motivated." And I want to keep this as much as possible as we grow. Because sometimes you have a small team and it's a family, but then you start growing and kind of like breaking apart. So for me, it's also I want to keep it this way and just want to introduce all new common people to our religion of being growth, being engaged, being motivated, and thinking about people who help at the end.
Does everyone at the moment work remotely, or do you have an office?
No, we work remotely. We don't have an office. From the day one, it was actually one of the challenges at the beginning, but right now I think it's one of the major investments we made. I have people working from different parts of Russia. I have people working from Poland, from Ukraine, from France, from Germany, from China.
And how do you manage that process? Yeah, and how do you create that culture? Yeah, that's an interesting question to ask. Is how do you create culture when no one actually spends physical time together, and how do you keep control of that culture?
I think it's all about communication. That's the most undervalued part of any management, especially when you're talking about remote team. Consistent, engaging communication, and because I think whenever like you're based like whatever part of the work you do, and you should understand what is the strategic goal, where the company is headed, what is going like in different parts of the team. We have like all hands daily calls, always with video, because you need to understand people engaging. We have this culture of sharing great news, like, hey, people in sales hit the records. Hey, people in client coverage, we get so much scholarship. Hey, people in marketing, we got all of this. And so we communicate. I was doing a lot of education work for people to make them communicate between each other, not just communicate through me. It was like a lot of work, especially when you're onboarding someone in experience. But that's because always translating why making this decision, why we're heading this way, why this is important, to kind of like talk to them, to have always a mutual conversation. We're always engaged to welcome people to contribute back. Because right now we're growing, we never had this kind of like code of ethics or like strategic, never written. And right now we actually gonna make one. And I invited all my team to make a contribution to actually write what they believe our team is about, how they believe it, what is like the most valuable, the core, what they want it to be like in 5-10 years. And like for example, last summer, we decided to have kind of like common vacation. So we rented a house for 1 month in Albania on a seashore. So invited like 50% of the team. They came along. So we spent like 1 month at the sea, working, hanging out together. That's really cool.
Nice. And that was the first time you'd all been together?
I was actually, well, some people I know, some people like based in Moscow, but we just don't see it. But like some people have been working for me like for 1 year, but I still
Yeah.
haven't met them in person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So, and how do you? So from it sounds like you've built a really strong culture, and you kind of like you lead from the front. How do you see that? How do you see that change, or how do you see your role changing within the business as it starts to scale?
Well, I feel it's changing already because 1 year ago I was kind of like major executor, driver, or kind of contributor. Right now, I see myself as a major resource provider. So I have team colleagues doing. So my case, so my task is to make sure they have all resources they need to make their job the best way, to make the top expertise, to have the best help, to have the best advisors, to have like being able to have money. I really do want to keep this culture of any employee being welcome, feeling free and comfortable to reach me any given moment to share like idea what's going on within the team. So it's hard to project how it's going to be changing, but I don't want to be like me focused. I want to like other teams leading and transforming the culture. Just want to like everyone feel that no matter how we grow, it's their company, they're building together with me.
Yeah, fantastic. I think one of the most important things in any business, especially as the business scales, is for the leader to understand kind of like when to let go, let go of things, and also keep control, or not control, but also but kind of like keep a keep that culture and keep that message externally. So it's almost becomes your responsibility to to hold the vision. Yeah, essentially you hold the vision for the company and you hold the vision for your team, but within that, each of them works independently, because they have been so engaged with what it is, and because they're given that ability to kind of like work independently.
Yeah, that's the aim. Yeah.
And I think it certainly sounds like you're setting things up in the right way to be able to do that. I want to ask you how many. So a year and a half. We've already talked about like the revenue growth that you've had. What's the and you talked about the number of grants, or the volume of grants, the financial volume of grants that have been applied for. How many lives have you actually impacted through this?
That's a lot. I mean, in fact, it's already almost 400 students already. Right now, it's a couple of thousands in active process. So yeah, actually, like, funny, you have a map on the background, right? So even before, like at the very beginning of the days when I was imagining like one day we're gonna have an office, I had this like I didn't know how it's gonna look like, but I just knew it's gonna be a huge wall and it's gonna be a map like this, but just turquoise because I like turquoise. And we're gonna be on the map. We're gonna put kind of like trajectory and pictures of all the people who sent different countries to kind of like remind this is the people we're helping and saving the lives. And I'm telling like we're gonna get some office just because of this map.
How does it? Yeah, it seems like this is definitely something that's that you're passionate about. How does it feel to know that you're impacting people in such a way? Yeah, because there's with this type of thing, with education, especially in emerging countries, when you help someone gain that extra education, and if they then go back, there's much more than of an impact than just on them, isn't there? It impacts their families, it impacts and then if they go back to that country, it impacts the country. So what does that make you feel?
It feels like we're doing the right job. And it feels like whenever I'm super tired and exhausted and tough moments within the business, which is always are, that's what actually reminds me. Like reading the messages, like looking at the photos our students send us, like, hey, for example, we had a girl, like one of the first clients, and she was like so like willing to go. Then she got to the Berkeley, she got a scholarship. She right now finishing her degree. She's getting married, and she kind of like sent me the picture, like with them, like yeah, and she found a job, and we were supposed to go to San Francisco because of the acceleration program. It's like yeah, be my guest. So that feels amazing. That's what actually when people say like where I get all the energy from to work this hard, that's where from.
And what's the size of the market potentially?
Well, total market is around 15 billions of US dollars potentially. So it's already 2.5 millions of students already going to the to study abroad. Let alone that majority of them just don't know about the scholarship and grants, but they're still going. And the like general admission rate is around 15%, so like 15 millions of people per year usually applying to universities abroad, and then just multiply by lifetime value we usually make, it makes around 15 billion at least.
Yeah. So let's. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Let's imagine that we're having this same conversation a year from now. Yeah. What what are the key metrics that you want to have hit?
I want to like first number of scholarships your students get. That's I guess like that's what we ultimately doing, kind of successful application. Apart from the impact for me as an entrepreneur, the business side is really important. So for me, it's really important for the kind of like growth and marketing revenue that we're making. And I think for the team, I don't know like which metric actually to put for the team, but maybe the churn from the team, kind of like to understand that people no kind of like to understand that I don't know like which one to choose, kind of like that people staying with us and we're growing but people not living still within this time frame, because that's important. I don't know how to metric, maybe I should create one, but but this one for the internal team.
And just on that, so the team piece is important, and so I want to kind of like pull back to this question. Do you encourage kind of like further education within the company?
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, like a lot of students, I mean, some of them studying abroad, some of them willing to study abroad, and that's I think the beauty that we do in remote work, that can really move in along and invest in themselves. I do encourage a lot to move, like to study a lot, to move along the company divisions. Like for example, a girl who's an account manager and working with the clients. She decided to create a referral program, and she decided to realize a sales manager found that it's really interesting to share some knowledge and started to write a blog and articles on our website about the education. We do also have we're kind of creating the corporate library, where we tell people like, hey, this like book is really awesome, here you should read. And sometimes we think we kind of like extra knowledge, professional courses, online lectures, books they might need to grow progressively, and how they want to like we have these talks how they want to progress within the company. So we because for me education is development. It should be continuous, it should be in different ways. If they want to go back to school just to feel it because of the connection, because they want to move, they're welcome. If they want to kind of like professionally change with it, they're welcome. If they want to grow with us, same. Like for example, new students that get bored, I just tell them, so guys, like just to make sure I understand what we're doing, there's a Silicon Valley 6 seasons, please watch it first. You will understand how it feels.
No, for sure. I think that's really valuable. It's one of the things that I kind of recognize after being in business for a while and running teams, is that sometimes people are just in the wrong place, in the wrong area, and it's one of the things that you learn, or one of the things that a lot of employers miss as well, is that they think that someone's not very good at their job, and their reaction is to try and kind of just move that person out of the company, when actually if you spend a little bit of time with them, you can actually find that that employee may not have been very good in sales, but actually their zone of genius is in this other area. And by moving them and by speaking to them, finding out what it is that they're passionate about, you can move them into an area where they really excel and they really deliver for your business then. And I think that's the important piece, which you've talked about all the time, is communication.
Yeah, actually, we have this case. I totally agree. I have this like feeling and trust to employees, especially if they really believe what companies do. I think sometimes employers don't really like value loyalty enough and engagement within the company. So we had this girl who sometimes lacks attention and can really like make with the details and the job she was doing, but then it's like, no, but she's like so good with communication. So I just like, hey, let's try sales first. So we decided to move, and all her speaking and talking parts just went through the roof, like in sales parts and doing. So yeah, I do really believe you should really trust the people you work with, trust the people you hire, and believe them.
Yeah. I think that's difficult. That's difficult for some employers, but I guess That's one of the beauties of starting something from scratch yourself, is you get to write the rules and play the game the way you want to play it.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple more questions that I just want to ask you. So we've talked a little bit about culture and values and things. What are your personal values?
Like in business and life.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah.
I do first of all loyalty. I think like for me, in terms of the people, in terms of the team, it's the most important, the most I value. Because when you're loyal, when you're really committed to what you're doing, it's respect, and respect in multiple ways. Respect to the efforts people are making, like in other parts of the job, like someone is making, you should not really give it as a granted. You should really be thankful, respectful of their time, like in any given like way. So for me, it's like I have this like time issue, because I think like time is like the most limited resource we have. So we should really respect the time. I mean, a founder, I don't have time to sleep, so yeah, obviously. So I think loyalty, respect, and kind of like commitment to what you're doing. You might not be as good in anything, but you're really willing to put as much as you can, really willing to grow, not kind of like slacking, not pulling. So this kind of like, I don't, commitment, engagement, how you call this. But when you have this kind of like fire in your eyes, it doesn't really matter where you start. It's really more where you're heading, and you really feel so much to help these people, no matter if it's just a guy on the street, if it's your friends, if it's your clients, if it's your member. You just need to search for opportunities, but not for excuses. So I think that's for me.
Yeah, great stuff. Final question. You're, as one of Seedstars' heroes, I want to ask you, who are your heroes?
Well, that's tough, I guess. I think I have so many of them. To be honest. Yeah, I think I always have the last question was usually the hardest one.
So let's pick one from business, a hero in business, and a hero in life.
Yeah, so in business, I don't think I'm gonna be very creative in this side. I do think that the person who the most inspired me was Elon Musk, which is like the most trivial, I guess, response. But what he really helped me sometimes to understand is how to think outside the system. So what majority of people do is they try to act and find solution within the system, existing system, and trying to match. And if you don't really fit, then you're wrong. And what I think is really wide way, if you don't fit within the system, so create your own system that's gonna fit. And that's what actually really helped me to build a business that's making money and have an impact, and growing emerging markets within the funds. Just forget about the system. You don't have it on the market, build it. That's all you need. And I think like, I mean, this crazy guy has like some parts that like, but this the thing, I think this was like the book I was rereading a few times, a book about him. It's like, wow, that's what actually I believe, and that's what helped me a lot within this time. In my personal life, a hero. Oh yeah, I know. That's kind of like, yeah, the first, the most obvious. I have a friend, and when I was like, I think we like started to make friends like 13, 14 years ago, and she was like, I was kind of like chubby girl, not into sports, and she was like the one who first pulled me into like trainings and so on. So she was always hero because like how fighter she was. She kind of like believed in me when I was like chubby, couldn't run a lap in a stadium. Kind of like, yeah, you can go this. She was chubby down. I mean, like she was so fighter um within the competitions and everything she's doing, like really fighting till the very end. And at some point of time, she kind of like got sick, like really, and she was like overcoming all of these things and issues so bravely and so optimistically, and she made it, and she just keeps rocking, and she just won her competition again last month. And I think like back then, when I maybe potentially didn't have this kind of like fighter thing inside of me, that's really showed me, she really helped me, she kind of like put her line. and she really keeps it. She really keeps doing no matter what, and that's really admiring. I think like she made one of the biggest impacts on me.
It took a while for you to get there, but it's one of those questions. It's one of those questions we don't ask ourselves very often, isn't it? So
yeah, that's very true. I never ask actually myself.
Yeah. Okay. So that brings us to the end of this section, this podcast. Dasha, it's been an absolute pleasure to kind of get to know you and get to know more about your business. I look forward to kind of following you and seeing the growth over the next year, and looking forward to seeing you achieve all of your dreams and goals.
Thank you so much. It was amazing to have a conversation. Talk to you.
Thank you for listening to our hero's journey, and subscribe now for more stories on Seedstars podcast.